Let's bring in MS Now's Ken Dilanian in Washington. Michael Schnell is covering Capitol Hill. And with me here in the studio, Republican strategist and MS Now political analyst, Susan Del Percio. Welcome to all of you. So, Ken, it is really something to see Kurt Cobain, whose name comes up 4 times, alongside someone like Noam Chomsky, whose name comes up nearly 3,800 times, with no clarification at all as to why they're in these files or in what context they're included. Do we have any idea why it was done this way?
Good afternoon, Alex. Well, the Justice Department points out that the term politically exposed person is not really defined in the statute, and they suggest that they did this as best they could. They were following the law. But of course, another way to look at this is they're hiding the ball here. They're doing what commercial litigants do all the time. They dump people they dump information on their opponents and say, you guys sort it out. So we are left not knowing the meaning of some of these names, why they're included. They didn't have to do that. They could have been more specific. They chose not to. At the same time, from their perspective, they're sitting there and saying, look, the Biden administration didn't release any of these files. We've released a ton of Epstein files, not satisfying everybody, but they believe they've made a good faith effort. And I do have to give them credit. I mean, there's some very graphic allegations about Donald Trump in these files that saw the light of day. Some of our sources were worried that those files would not be released. In fact, they were. We don't know still what's been withheld. They're citing things like deliberative process privilege and attorney work product privilege that Congress really doesn't recognize and would argue that should not be withheld under the law. But nonetheless, the Justice Department is arguing that they have been fully transparent here and they're doing the best they can under some very difficult circumstances, Alex.
I don't know, man. Marilyn Monroe, she died in 1962. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein was 9 years old. Really? That one too is really quite extraordinary, that one. But let's get to you, Susan, because Nancy Mace, she is certainly joining some Democrats, and she's calling this a cover-up. Is that what you see?
They're trying to cover up something. Now, what I keep hearing in my head is what Marjorie Taylor Greene said when she spoke to Donald Trump, is that it will hurt a lot of people who I know, that's what the president had told her. And that's what I think this is all about, to Ken's point, is dump as much as you can in there, try and dissect it. We talked about 6 million files. There's now 3 million that have been released. There's 3 more million to go. I think they want it to be such a big mess that it's hard for people to track down. And frankly, I don't think they thought people like reporters and members of the House of Representatives would be so quick to get through it all. I think that was in part of the surprise, is that, wow, they were able to go through these records pretty quickly and get some information. The other side of this, which I think lawmakers and others are very acutely aware of, is there's a lot of things like the 302s, the files that the victims gave to the FBI, and those are not public. And these victims know who they file those reports against.
They sure do.
And they sure do. And they've been very, very restrained, much more credit to them. I mean, it's unbelievable. And lawmakers had said, I will not release those names. But the victims, when they see enough is enough and they're done, beware, because those names are coming out.
So, Michael, what else are we hearing from lawmakers on this?
Yeah, look, Alex, they're not satisfied. And this report to Congress about the redactions was something that a lot of lawmakers were looking forward to and pointing to over recent months and conversations I had with them whenever we spoke about when the Epstein files would be released and what had been out there. The biggest question they had was, were things properly redacted, particularly when they started going through the files that were released and then going behind closed doors at the DOJ to see the unredacted files. They were raising some concerns about victims' names not being redacted, and then some powerful, well-connected folks, their names being redacted. So this list is only raising more questions for them about how those redactions were carried out, but also this list of those politically connected persons, as they're being called, raising questions as to why that had to be released, some of the names that are on there. And it's important to note that this criticism is coming from both sides of the aisle. I'll show you first what Ro Khanna said. He's the Democrat from California. He was the Democratic co-sponsor of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. He wrote an X right there, purposefully muddying the waters on who was a predator and who was mentioned in an email, to have Janis Joplin, who died when Epstein was 17, in the same list as Larry Nassar, who went to prison for sexual abuse of hundreds of young women and child pornography, with no clarification of how either was mentioned in the files is absurd. I also want to read to you what Nancy Mace said. She's a Republican from South Carolina. Important to note, she was one of those 4 Republicans who who signed the discharge petition, which set this entire process in motion despite intense pressure from the White House. She wrote on X, quote, "Despite the memo released by DOJ last night, not all the Epstein files have been released, and the excuses provided for not releasing all the files will not hold up in a court of law. This isn't going away until people go to jail." So again, Alex, the concerns here are sort of in 3 buckets. It's A, how the redactions were completed, victims' names being out there, names of powerful, well-connected being hidden. B, it's the fact that the entire tranche of documents haven't actually been released. We've heard about $3.5 million from the DOJ, and they had said that they had around $6 million in their hands. And then C, this new concern that's now coming to air, it's this list of people that's muddying the waters for a lot of lawmakers.
Yeah, for sure. So, Susan, we heard Thomas Massie call this the Epstein administration. If you're a Republican and you were running in November, how much do you worry about that moniker sticking with you? And how can you go about pushing back without enraging this administration to potentially your peril?
Right. I think what you're going to see Republicans do is say they're fighting for the victims. They're going to stay away from Donald Trump as much as they can on this issue, and those in his administration who have been found not guilty of any crime, but associated with Epstein. So and that's what Democrats will try and put on Republicans. So it will be a tricky walk for Republicans, no doubt. But I think you're going to see more and more Republicans actually demand for more clarity of the Epstein files.
You know, you mentioned the Epstein survivors. Let's play a little bit, those 302s particularly, of what we heard from some Epstein survivors over the weekend. And they were issuing a plea to the public. Please don't let this go. Take a listen.
It should be very personal to every single person. And again, it's hard not to connect it to the fact that it should be so personal because it affects every single person, whether it's a high profile case or it's in a local community.
We're victims of the crime of sex trafficking, and I don't think that anyone in our country, if this was happening in their community, could stand by and watch it. And so for us to see our Department of Justice just so willingly and willfully denying citizens of this country justice, it just, you know, it makes my brain explode.
Does this go away just because Pam Bondi says it's over?
Absolutely not. And Alex, I'm on your show on many Sundays, and I know how much you keep a spotlight on it. And I think that you and others have done such a service to these victims and, frankly, to the country, because we shouldn't forget about it. You know, the president had said it's time to move on. No, it's not. These women have not received justice, not by a long shot. And I also fear that by not getting the justice, not at least having the transparency, we are really doing a lot of harm to our country and the Department of Justice as a whole. Because who can trust it if they just look at it as, oh, when it's a Republican administration, they will cover up and do what they can. And frankly, the previous Democrat administration didn't do much for transparency. So I think that, again, these women are, what's so remarkable is that they won't back down, that they keep going. And I don't know how they do it. They are fierce. And it is the job that they do and how painful it must be every day to get up and have to deal with it personally and then talk about it with the media. Give them a lot of credit.
Right now, there is strength in numbers, though, for them. That's for sure, given there are at least 1,000 of them, we believe. I know.